Happy lunch hour, guys. You'll own nothing and be happy, right? Where have we heard that before? Here's my question. Are you already part of the problem? Are you feeding the beast? What do I mean by that? Well, let's think about this, all right? You need a car. Why buy it? I can lease it, right? Gee, I want to listen to music. Why buy the CD? I can just subscribe to iTunes or something for whatever the hell it is and listen to music. I mean, there's your computer. Cable company tells you whatever. You don't have to buy a modem. We can lease you one, right? I mean, you can even go out and lease your clothes now, wear it once and return it. You've all seen that, okay? That's exactly what you'll own nothing and be happy, right? You rent a house. A lot of people rent an apartment. You don't own it. You can pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent over the course of your life. And at the end, your asset value is zero. You got nothing for it. You got the privilege to stay there. That's what the governments, the World Economic Forum, want. They want to own everything. Now, you look at how companies are really pushing this. There are you guys know that I recruited in IT for a long time. Anybody ever heard of software as a service? Okay. You don't buy the software, you lease it from the software company. Think about how you do that on your own. How many of you have Office 365 on your computer and you pay Microsoft a monthly fee for the ability to use Word and Excel and PowerPoint and whatever would be? Okay, you're leasing the software. You pay them whatever it is, $5 or whatever a month. You get to use the software, and at the end of the year, you still get to pay them $5. Okay. This is where this is subtly being pushed upon us. And everybody's coming up, companies-wise, with a new way to lease you stuff. How long does it take before everything is leasable, right? Here's the problem. You have to have an income to pay for those leases that you have, right? You have a lease on a car and you lose your job and you can't make those lease payments, they come get the car. This is where the problem comes in with inflation and unemployment and all this sort of stuff. You think about going back years and years and years and years and years, okay, to, let's say, the 1700s and the 1800s. The term sharecropping, all right, you know how that worked, right? The landowner owned, let's just say for the sake of argument, 100 acres of land. And he gave 20 acres to 4 other people that they had to farm. He kept 20 and gave 20-acre parcels of his 100 acres to those 4 other people. Those people were required to till the land, work the land, grow the food and everything, and they had to pay rent, but they also had to, their rent, if you will, was tied into production of food. They had to give some of the food to the landowner, and they had to sell some of what they grew to get currency to pay for their rent and also to pay for any other necessities, right? Well, here's where the problem lies, and this is where it comes into why this will never work. Let's say we have a mega drought. I'm talking to you, Western United States. Let's say we have a drought in general. Hello, Southeastern United States. Let's say we have no fertilizer. Hello, world. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, you don't have the ability to grow the food to pay the bills. And guess what happens? You get kicked off that land. That's what happened back 200 years ago, 250 years ago. Now let's think about that into the worldwide scale. Let's go into our Gatesvilles and our Zuckerbergs, okay? And they want to own everything. And if all of a sudden you can't pay the rent, you get kicked off the land. And where do you go? There is nowhere. So now you are defined as a useless eater. So this is what we look at. Do we start having debtors' prisons come back? Does everybody wind up in concentration camps because you owe money and you have no way to pay it, so we have to put you somewhere? This has been tried before in history, guys, and it failed miserably. It was also what was the advent for slavery. Let's go back to the 1800s again. The farmers needed somewhere, the landowners needed people to work the fields. They needed cheap labor. What are we hearing about cheap labor? Gee, Nancy Pelosi, I don't understand why all the Mexicans are coming up to New York. They need them down in Florida to pick the crops. Her words, not mine. Okay? So they need cheap labor. That goes back to slavery, okay? Which again was a somewhat form of sharecropping. The slave owner had paid the slaves, if you will, in a roof over their head and a meager meal, and that was it. And in return, they got to work their ass off on the farm so that the landowner could have his tea and crumpets with all the rest of the people that were extremely overdressed for working on a farm. That's what all this is, guys. And you're feeding the beast by subscribing to iTunes, by leasing a car, okay? You own nothing. You're happy now. But what happens when you can't pay for it? Ever thought about it that way? This is why owning what you have is so important. If the world ever goes to this, you'll own nothing and be happy deal, that's going to be for the general public, okay? I don't want to be any part of that, okay? Zero. I want everybody to be able to do what they want to do. But if I'm stuck and I have no way else, I sure as hell want to be a landowner and not a sharecropper, if you will. Now, granted, I think a lot of us have a completely different idea how we would help other people rather than what the lunatics in the World Economic Forum and the elitists think, okay? You know, it's certainly not going to be shackles and all this sort of stuff like they expect. But they expect a different kind of shackles. Oh, we're doing good for all humanity. We gave them a shed-sized house. They have somewhere to live. Yeah, well, you know what? So did the slave owners. I don't know about you, but I have no intention of being a slave, and I have absolutely no intention of owning nothing. Pinball out.